There's a very interesting comedy movie that came out some years ago called What Happens in Vegas. What Happens in Vegas, starring Ashton Kutcher and Cameron Diaz. Want to talk about the power of betting on yourself, how essential that is. I know it sounds cliche, and this is probably the preliminaries of what you're going to hear in any opening motivational speaking summit. You're going to hear this phrase, bet on yourself. To bet on yourself. A lot of times, whether we realize it, we train ourselves not to bet on ourselves. And sometimes the pressure of trying to go along with a status quo or a way of doing things will cause us not to really factor ourselves in. We won't bet on ourselves as much as we'll hope for inclusion and labor towards that. But it won't have anything to do with betting on ourselves, although a lot of betting, the inexperienced would say, has to do with hope. But really, true betting, not gambling, but true betting, is calculated risk. Now, gambles are taken in desperation when you have nothing left. A wing and a prayer, a Hail Mary, that's associated with gambling. See, there's no such thing as a betting addiction. There's no such thing as that. But there is a such thing as a gambling addiction. Just the thrill of the unknown in a way that would, cause you to lose a considerable amount of income in hopes for something. See, gambles involve more hope than strategy. So when you're betting on yourself, understand the difference between a gamble and a calculated risk. So in this movie, they were at the I forget what game, but they were rolling dice. And before he rolled the dice, Ashton had the dice in his hand. Before he rolled them, he said, I wouldn't bet on me. He was afraid to roll the dice. And they in Vegas. They having a good time. They at the peak of the good time. Trust is starting to be formed between them because the plot originally had structured it in kind of the opposite way, without spoiling the movie too much. But just to give you that scene, Cameron Diaz, she says one of the most important things to him, and this is what we need to say to ourselves, however many times we need to. We can't say it to ourselves enough. But she said, don't worry. But the most important part was, she said, I trust you. You got this. You know what I mean? Like, to tell him it's okay. Take a bet on yourself. You got this. And he rolls for a 7. He was like, what do I do? He didn't even know what to do. She said, roll for a 7. So he rolls, hits a 7. He's happy. So when you look at the polarity of the human soul, you got the masculine and you got the feminine part. You want to make sure that when you're betting on yourself, that you have that feminine counterpart in you that's going to be like, when the masculine part of you is frantic and dealing with a puzzle and a complex, just let that soothing, dove-like, holy spiritual side of you just sort of step in the midst of your anxiety and say, don't worry, baby, you got this. I say it in the mirror every day. Don't worry, man, you got this. You got this. I don't care what the numbers look like. You got this. I trust you. I believe in you. You got this. You can do this. You can do this. You're doing it. Look at where you've come from. All of these pep rallies allow you to realize the benefits of really taking a calculated risk versus the gamble. Now, the gamble, you're not going to celebrate quite the same. You'll be like, oh, I got it. I'm lucky. I can't believe it. Usually that's the phrase that follows a gamble. I couldn't believe it. I didn't see it coming. I never thought this would happen. See, calculated risk are phrases that follow a calculated risk goal. Yeah, I've been working at this for this many years. I remember when I first started this. I remember my first mentor taught me. I remember my first experience trying this. When I decided which direction, it always has an origin story when you're betting on yourself, taking calculated risk. But there's no origin story for a gamble, but a fly-by-night sensation. Super T Sigma, Sigma Programming, and Life's Casino. Make sure you pull those levers, but don't gamble. Take calculated risk. Peace.